I need to tell you about Margaret Pritchard before the story gets away from me. Before I convince myself it didn't happen the way I remember it. Before the details blur into something I can live with. Margaret was 63 years old in 1975, a widow with sensible shoes and a government-issued clipboard. She'd worked for the Census Bureau for 11 years, without incident. She was the kind of person who showed up early, followed every protocol, and never complained about the mountain roads that turned her kidneys into maracas. The kind of person you could count on. After April 17, 1975, she never worked again. Not for the Census Bureau, not for anyone. I know this because I was her supervisor, and I'm the one who found her 3 days after she went up Cutter's Gap Road. I'm the one who saw what she'd written in that government ledger before they took it away. And I'm the one who's been carrying this around for almost 50 years, waiting for someone to finally ask the right questions. So here's what I know, what I saw, and what I've spent half a century trying to understand. The assignment was routine. Cutter's Gap Road, about 40 miles northwest of Asheville, up in the kind of Appalachian hollow where the mist doesn't burn off until noon, and the roads are more like suggestions than actual paths. We knew there were families up there who'd never been counted properly. The 1970 census had been a mess in that area. 2 different enumerators reported conflicting information, and one just marked the whole region as inaccessible rather than deal with it. Margaret volunteered. That's important. She actually raised her hand when I mentioned Cutter's Gap at the monthly briefing. Said she'd grown up not far from there, knew how to talk to mountain people, knew not to ask too many questions about certain things. Looking back, I wonder if she knew something, if she'd heard stories. She left the district office at 6 a.m. on Thursday, April 17th. She had 73 houses on her list, starting with the Henley place at the base of the gap and working her way up. She was supposed to check in at noon and again at 5 p.m. We had a system worked out with the ranger station. They had a radio, could relay messages. The noon check-in came through fine. She'd completed 12 houses, everyone cooperative, no issues. Her voice was cheerful, professional. She said the weather was holding and she'd try to get through another 20 before calling it a day. The 5 p.m. check-in never came. Now, I want you to understand something about protocol. The Census Bureau in 1975 didn't mess around with safety, especially not in remote areas. We had strict check-in requirements. If an enumerator missed a scheduled contact, we had procedures. But those procedures assumed normal circumstances. Flat tires, getting lost, minor injuries. They didn't account for what happened to Margaret. When she didn't show up at the district office by 8 p.m., I called the ranger station. They sent someone up Cutter's Gap Road, but had to turn back. A spring storm had rolled in, the kind that turns dirt roads into chocolate rivers. They promised to try again at first light. I didn't sleep that night, kept thinking about Margaret's sensible shoes navigating those muddy slopes. Kept wondering if she'd slipped, broken an ankle, was sitting somewhere cold and scared waiting for help. The rangers found her car at dawn on Friday, parked at the bottom of a long dirt driveway about 18 miles up Cutter's Gap Road. The driver's door was open. Her purse was on the seat, wallet intact. Her census materials were spread across the passenger side like she'd been organizing them. The keys were in the ignition, but Margaret wasn't there. They followed the driveway up through a stand of white pines and mountain laurel. A quarter-mile in, the trees opened up to reveal a house that shouldn't have existed. I say shouldn't have existed because I'd been over those census maps 100 times. I'd reviewed the 1970 data, the 1960 data, even pulled some records from 1950. There was no house marked at that location. The property ownership records showed a lumber company had bought the land in 1923 and never developed it. The parcel was listed as uninhabited forest. Yet there it stood. The house was old, not quaintly old, but wrong old. The kind of structure that makes you wonder how it's still standing. 2 stories, weathered grey wood that might have been white once, windows like empty eye sockets staring down the mountain. A porch wrapped around the front, sagging in the middle like a frown. The roof was mostly intact, but showed patches of sky through missing shingles. The rangers called my name as they approached. That's procedure. You identify yourself, make your presence known. They called out several times. No response. The front door was ajar. They found Margaret sitting at a kitchen table inside. She was alive, physically unharmed, not a scratch on her, but when they said her name, when they asked if she was okay, she didn't respond. Just sat there with her hands folded on the table, staring at the wall. Her census ledger was open in front of her. She'd filled out exactly one form. They brought her down the mountain, called me. I met them at the ranger station and saw her with my own eyes. Margaret Pritchard, who'd never missed a deadline or forgotten a protocol, sitting in a plastic chair with a cup of coffee going cold in her hands. She was looking through me, through the walls, through everything. "Margaret," I said, "what happened up there?" Her lips moved. I had to lean in close to hear. "I counted them," she whispered. "I counted all of them." That's all she said. For 3 days, that's all she said. Just that one sentence over and over. I counted them. I counted all of them. On the 4th day, she stopped talking entirely. They kept her at the county hospital for observation. No physical trauma, no signs of assault or injury. The doctors called it a severe dissociative episode, probably brought on by stress or a psychological break. They recommended psychiatric evaluation. I should have left it alone, should have filed the incident report, marked those houses as incomplete, moved on. But I couldn't stop thinking about that census form, the one she'd filled out at that impossible house. The rangers had brought down her materials. Standard procedure, collect everything, document the scene. The ledger sat in my office for a week before I worked up the courage to actually read what she'd written. The form was meticulous. Margaret's handwriting, neat and precise as always, but the information she'd recorded made my skin crawl. Address, no street number, no route number, just Cutter's Gap Road, 18 miles. Head of household, Ezekiel Cutter. Age, 127, relationship status, widowed number of persons in household, 23. That stopped me. 23 people in that ramshackle house? I kept reading. She'd listed every single occupant, names, ages, relationships, but the ages were wrong, impossible. Ezekiel Cutter, 127. Sarah Cutter, daughter, 89. Thomas Cutter, grandson, 71. Rebecca Cutter, great-granddaughter, 54. The family tree kept branching, kept going down generations, but all of them were living in that house. All of them impossibly old or exactly the ages they should have been if the oldest members really were born in the 1840s. At the bottom of the page, in the section marked Notes or Special Circumstances, Margaret had written one sentence in handwriting that got shakier as it went along. They're all still here. None of them have left since 1897. I stared at that date. 1897, 78 years before Margaret climbed those porch steps. Now here's where I should have done the rational thing, filed a report about Margaret's mental break, sent someone else up to properly enumerate that address, moved on with my life. But I'd known Margaret for over a decade. She wasn't prone to flights of fancy, she didn't crack under pressure. She was the most reliable person I'd ever worked with. And something about those names bothered me. I drove to the county records office that afternoon. Told the clerk I needed to see property records and death certificates for the Cutter's Gap area, going back as far as they had. She gave me a look. People don't usually request records from the 1800s, but she showed me where to search. It took 4 hours of digging through dusty ledgers and microfiche, but I found them. Ezekiel Cutter, born 1848, died 1897. Cause of death, influenza. Sarah Cutter, born 1886, died 1897. Cause of death, influenza. Thomas Cutter, born 1904, died. No death certificate. I kept searching. The pattern became clear. The Cutter family had lived in that hollow since at least 1820. They'd been relatively prosperous by mountain standards, owned a lumber mill, employed a dozen local men. But in September 1897, influenza tore through the household. 9 family members died in the span of 3 weeks. After that, the records got strange. Property taxes were paid regularly through 1915, then sporadically after that. But there were no more birth records, no death records, no marriage licenses. The family just stopped interacting with the outside world. The last official mention I could find was a 1923 note in the timber company's records. Cutter property remains inhabited. Family declined sale offers. I sat in that records room as the late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, and I realized Margaret had documented something that couldn't exist. A family that had stopped, frozen in time, living in a house that wasn't supposed to be there. I should have stopped investigating, should have recognized that some questions don't need answers. But I'd been a bureaucrat my whole life. I believed in documentation, in evidence, in the tangible world you could put in a ledger and file away. So I decided to go up there myself. I want to be clear about my mindset. I didn't believe in ghosts or hauntings or any kind of supernatural nonsense. I figured there had to be a rational explanation. Maybe Margaret had misread the ages. Maybe she'd confused dates. Maybe the family was playing some kind of elaborate prank, claiming to be descendants with the same names as their ancestors. I told myself that all the way up Cutter's Gap Road. I made better time than Margaret had. The roads had dried out since the storm. I passed the 12 houses she'd completed that first day. Saw the Henley place, the Macomb cabin, the Johnson homestead. Normal mountain people living normal lives. At the 18-mile mark, I saw her car. It was still sitting there, driver's door still open. Nobody had thought to tow it. In the chaos of Margaret's breakdown and hospitalization, everyone had just forgotten about it. That should have been my first warning. Official vehicles don't get forgotten, but I was focused on the driveway that wound up into the pines. I parked behind Margaret's car and got out. The afternoon was warm, insects humming in the undergrowth, but I felt cold. The kind of cold that doesn't come from temperature, but from something else, something wrong. The driveway was overgrown but passable. As I walked, I noticed things, small details that accumulated into a sense of deep unease. The trees alongside the path were all dead on one side. The bark had fallen away, leaving pale grey wood exposed, but only on the side facing the house. The other side was green and healthy. There were no birds singing. I'd been hearing them all day as I drove. Cardinals, thrushes, the usual mountain chorus. But here, nothing, and there were objects scattered in the underbrush. I stopped to examine a few. A child's leather shoe, rotted to almost nothing. A rusted hand mirror, a cracked porcelain doll missing its eyes. Things that might have been dropped or thrown from the house, left to decay. When I emerged from the trees and saw the house, my first thought was that it looked worse than the rangers had described. But then I realized it looked exactly as bad. I'd just been hoping they'd exaggerated. 2 stories of rotting wood. Windows dark with grime or maybe just darkness inside. The wraparound porch sagging dangerously. But someone maintained it, at least minimally. The roof was patched with mismatched shingles. The front steps had been reinforced with newer boards. Someone was keeping this place standing. I stood there for a long minute, wondering what Margaret had felt standing in this exact spot. Had she sensed what was coming, or had she walked up those steps with the same professional confidence she brought to every assignment? "Hello?" I called out. "This is Jack Morrison from the Census Bureau. I'm following up on a visit from last week." My voice sounded small, absorbed by the air before it could echo. I waited. No response. The front door was closed now, but when I climbed the porch steps, testing each one carefully, I saw it wasn't latched, just resting in the frame. Every instinct I had screamed at me to leave. Walk back down that driveway, get in my car, drive to the district office, and mark this address as refusing to participate. File my reports, forget about Margaret's ledger and those impossible ages. But I was the supervisor. I'd sent Margaret up here. If something had happened to her, something real and explainable, I needed to understand it. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Not rot or decay like you'd expect from an old house. Something else. Something organic but wrong. Like flowers that had been preserved too long, their sweetness turning cloying and sick. The interior was dark. What little light came through the grimy windows showed a front room that might have been nice once. A fireplace, built-in shelves, a worn but intact rug. And people. I counted them before I could stop myself. They were sitting in chairs arranged around the room. Some on a sofa that had lost its stuffing in places, some in straight-backed wooden chairs, some on the floor, backs against the wall. All of them were looking at me. "Mr. Morrison," one of them said. An old man, ancient really, sitting in a rocking chair near the fireplace. "We wondered if you'd come." My mouth was dry. "You know my name." Mrs. Pritchard was very thorough in her documentation. She explained who she was, who she worked for, who might follow up. He smiled. His teeth were yellow but intact, too many of them visible in that grin. "You're very dedicated to your work." I should have run. Every fiber of my being wanted to bolt out that door and never look back. But I'd been trained to be calm in unusual situations, to follow protocol even when things got uncomfortable. "I'm here to complete the census enumeration for this household," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "May I ask who you are?" "I'm Ezekiel Cutter. This is my family." He gestured to the others in the room. "You're welcome to count us. That's what you do, isn't it? Count people." I looked at the faces watching me. Men, women, children. Some looked impossibly old, skin like parchment stretched over bone. Others looked younger, but with something off about them. Eyes too bright, skin too smooth, movements too still. "How many of you are there?" I asked. "The same number Mrs. Pritchard recorded, 23. We haven't changed." "Mr. Cutter, I need to verify some information. The Census Bureau has you listed as..." I stopped myself. How do you ask someone if they're really 127 years old? "As dead." Ezekiel smiled again. "I'm sure your records are very thorough. We died in 1897. Most of us, anyway. The influenza came through like fire that year. Took 9 of us in 3 weeks. I felt sweat beading on my forehead despite the cold. "Sir, if this is some kind of..." "Do I look dead to you, Mr. Morrison?" I looked at him, really looked. His skin had a waxy quality, like old fruit preserved in sugar. His eyes didn't blink often enough. When he breathed, his chest moved, but the movement seemed performative, like someone remembering to do it rather than needing to. "I need to sit down," I said. "Please." Ezekiel gestured to an empty chair. "We have many chairs. We've collected them over the years. Every decade or so, someone needs them." I didn't sit. What happened to Margaret Pritchard? Mrs. Pritchard completed her assigned task. She counted every member of this household, recorded our information accurately, and performed her civic duty admirably. He rocked gently in his chair. "She asked the same questions you're asking now. We gave her the same answers we're giving you." She had a breakdown. She stopped talking. "Yes, that's usually what happens. The knowing becomes too much." Ezekiel looked at the others, and several of them nodded. It's one thing to suspect the world contains impossible things. It's another to count them, to write their names in an official ledger, to make them real in the eyes of the government. A woman spoke up from the corner. She might have been 40 or 400. We told her she didn't have to complete the form, told her she could leave, but she insisted, said it was her job. "Margaret is very dedicated," I said, using present tense like a talisman. "She is," Ezekiel agreed. "She counted every one of us, asked all the standard questions, birth dates, education levels, occupations. We answered honestly. We always do. Lying seems pointless when you've been dead for 78 years. There it was, said plainly, casually, like discussing the weather. "This is impossible," I said, "and yet you're standing in our home, looking at us, listening to us speak." Ezekiel leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, do you know what a census is really for? At its heart, to count the population, to allocate resources and representation. To acknowledge existence," he corrected. "To say, you are here, you are real, you matter enough to be counted. That's a powerful thing. That's why we've participated in every census since 1880. That's why we always answer the door." My hands were shaking. I shoved them in my pockets. "If you've been dead since 1897, "We didn't die everywhere," a younger woman interrupted. "Her name would have been Rebecca if Margaret's notes were accurate, just in the places that count. Our hearts stopped. Our lungs stopped. We stopped in every way that doctors could measure, but we didn't stop here." "My daughter is correct," Ezekiel said. "We exist in the liminal spaces of your world, Mr. Morrison, in the gaps between documented and undocumented. The Census Bureau is the only part of your government that remembers to look in those gaps." I felt dizzy. The room seemed to tilt. "What do you want?" "What we've always wanted, to be counted, to exist in your records, even if we can't exist anywhere else." He stood up slowly, joints creaking. "We didn't ask for this. The influenza took us too quickly, too viciously. We died before we were ready, before we'd said our goodbyes, before we'd finished living, and somehow, through will or curse or cosmic accident, we didn't let go, we stayed. Stayed where? Here, always here. We can't leave this house, can't go beyond the tree line. We're bound to this place, to each other, to the day we died. But every 10 years, someone comes from the government to remind us we still exist in some small way, to write our names down, to acknowledge us. A child spoke from near the fireplace. He looked about 7, but his voice carried decades of weariness. It's the only time we feel real, when someone writes us down. I thought about Margaret sitting at this same table, dutifully recording information she knew couldn't be true, forcing herself to complete the task even as reality unraveled around her. And I understood, suddenly and completely, why she'd broken. Because they were telling the truth. I couldn't explain how I knew. Maybe it was the way they moved, slightly out of sync with the world, like film played at the wrong speed. Maybe it was the smell, that preserved flower wrongness. Maybe it was something deeper, some primal part of my brain recognizing that these were no longer people in any meaningful sense. I need to leave, I said. Of course. Ezekiel sat back down. You're always free to leave, Mr. Morrison. Mrs. Pritchard was free to leave, but she stayed until she'd completed her work. Will you? I looked at the faces watching me, 23 dead people who'd been dying for 78 years, who needed the government to remember them, who participated in a census because it was the only thread connecting them to the living world. What happens if I don't complete the count? We remain uncounted, and in 10 years, someone else will come. Someone else will have to decide whether to document the impossible or flee from it. He paused. Someone else will break the way Mrs. Pritchard broke. That's why you're telling me all this. You don't want me to break. We don't enjoy it, the woman named Rebecca said softly. When people break, when they can't process what we are, we just need to be counted. That's all we've ever needed. I stood there for a long time, weighing my options. I could run, get in my car, drive back to civilization, report that the house was abandoned or refuse to enumerate it, mark it as completed without actually doing the work. But then I thought about Margaret, sitting in that hospital chair whispering, I counted them over and over. She'd done her job even as it destroyed her. She'd been that dedicated. Could I do less? If I count you, I said slowly, will you answer my questions honestly? All of them? We always do, Ezekiel said. I pulled out my clipboard and forms. My hands were still shaking, but I managed to click my pen. Let's start with you, Mr. Cutter. Full legal name? What followed was the strangest hour of my life. I went through the entire household systematically, just as Margaret had. Asked every standard question. Date of birth, place of birth, educational attainment, occupation. They answered everything. Ezekiel had been a lumber mill owner. Sarah had been a schoolteacher before she married. Thomas had died at age 12, but would have been 71. Rebecca worked as what she called a memory keeper, which I wrote down as household management because there was no census category for whatever she actually meant. Some of them had been born in the 1800s, some in the early 1900s. All of them had died in or near this house, always from circumstances that trapped them here. Disease, accidents. One woman had frozen to death in a winter storm after getting turned around in the woods. We can't leave, she explained when I asked how she'd joined the household. Once we died here, we stayed here. The house collected us. As I worked, I noticed details I'd missed initially. The furniture was a mishmash of styles spanning decades. A Victorian sofa next to a 1920s radio, next to a 1960s television that probably had never worked. Objects brought in by the dying, I realized, last possessions. Do you need anything? I asked at one point, then felt stupid. I mean, is there anything that would help? Being counted helps, Ezekiel said simply. Being remembered helps. For 10 years, we'll exist in a government database somewhere. Our names will be real. That's all we can ask for. When I finished the last form, my hand was cramped and my head pounded. I documented 23 people who shouldn't exist, recording information I knew would never make it into the official census count. What happens to this data? I asked. You'll file it. Your supervisors will see it. They'll make quiet notes in their records, and then it will be buried under administrative protocols and forgotten by everyone except us. Ezekiel stood. That's how it always goes. The Bureau has been counting us,